The Simpsons has been on the air since December 17th, 1989. That first episode, Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire, was directed by David Silverman and written by Mimi Pond. It was supposed to be a simple Christmas special about a dad trying to buy presents for his family. And somehow, 35 years and over 750 episodes later, these yellow cartoon characters have collectively committed enough crimes to fill an actual prison. Homer Simpson alone has been arrested over a dozen times. Mr. Burns once tried to block out the sun. Sideshow Bob spent 24 years trying to murder a 10-year-old boy. And Bart Simpson has been to juvenile detention, worked for the mob, and caused so much property damage that the entire town of Springfield once voted unanimously to kick his family out. Tonight we are going through every major character in Springfield and breaking down the absolute worst thing each one of them has ever done. Not the funniest, not the dumbest, the worst. The most morally bankrupt, genuinely disturbing, and occasionally criminal things that these characters have pulled off across 3.5 decades of television. We are ranking them from least evil to most evil, and the character sitting at the very top of this list makes some real-world villains look reasonable by comparison. The show has been renewed through season 40, which means these characters have plenty of time to get even worse. But for now, we are working with what we have. And what we have is a lot. Get comfortable. This is going to take a while. We are starting with someone you probably would not expect to see on a worst things list at all. She is 8 years old. She plays the saxophone. She is the moral compass of the entire show. And her worst moments are more interesting than you think. Lisa Simpson, the self-righteous crusader. Here is what makes Lisa's entry on this list so fascinating. She is almost always right. When Lisa takes a stand on vegetarianism, the environment, feminism, political corruption, or educational standards, she is usually on the correct side of the argument. The show has consistently positioned her as the smartest and most ethically minded member of the Simpson family, and often the smartest person in the entire town. She has an IQ that qualifies her as a genius. She is a second grader who reads at a college level. She has won science fairs, essay contests, and spelling bees. She is, by every measurable standard, a good person. But that is exactly what makes her worst moments so revealing. Because when Lisa Simpson is wrong, or more accurately, when Lisa Simpson decides that being right matters more than being kind, the damage she causes is real, and she almost never faces consequences for it. Let's start with one of the clearest examples. The episode, On a Clear Day, I Can't See My Sister, from season 16. In this episode, Bart pulls some pranks on Lisa. Standard Bart behavior. Nothing life-threatening, nothing unusual, just the kind of sibling antagonism that has been happening in the Simpson household since 1989. But Lisa's response is wildly disproportionate. She goes to court and gets an actual restraining order against her own brother. Think about what that means in practical terms. Bart cannot come within a certain distance of Lisa. They live in the same house, they attend the same school, they eat at the same dinner table. The restraining order essentially banishes Bart from his own life. He cannot sit at the family table to eat. He cannot attend class normally. He has to sleep outside because the house is not big enough to maintain the required distance. He is a 10-year-old kid sleeping in the yard because his 8-year-old sister used the legal system as a weapon. And the thing is, Lisa knows what she is doing. This is not an accident or a misunderstanding. She deliberately uses a system designed to protect people from genuine threats, stalkers, and abusers, and she turns it against her brother over pranks. The judge grants it because the legal system in Springfield is a joke, but Lisa pursues it with full knowledge of the consequences. She does not care that her brother is suffering. She cares that she won. This is Lisa's pattern. Her moral certainty is so absolute that collateral damage becomes acceptable. If she believes she is right, then anyone who gets hurt in the process probably deserved it. Now let's look at an episode that showcases a different side of the same problem. The Old Man and the Lisa, Season 8, Episode 21. This is one of the best episodes in the entire series, and it features one of Lisa's most controversial decisions. The setup is straightforward. Mr. Burns has lost his fortune. He is broke. He ends up at the Springfield retirement castle talking to ketchup bottles in the supermarket because he cannot tell the difference between ketchup and catsup. Lisa, who has been on a recycling campaign, reluctantly agrees to help Burns learn about recycling. but only if he promises to change his ways. And it works. Burns and Lisa start making money through recycling. Burns opens the Little Lisa recycling plant, built entirely from recycled materials. Lisa is proud. She thinks she has actually reformed the most evil man in Springfield. She thinks her moral influence has made a difference. But then Burns shows her what he calls the best part. He has used recycled plastic to create a massive net made from 6-pack holders, and he is using it to sweep the ocean clean of all living creatures. He is grinding everything, fish, dolphins, everything, into animal slurry for profit. Lisa is horrified. She tells Burns he hasn't changed at all, and that when he tries to be good, he is somehow even more evil than before. Here is where Lisa's decision gets interesting. Burns offers to sell the recycling plant for $120 million. He offers Lisa 10%. That is $12 million. $12 million that could fund recycling programs, environmental charities, education initiatives, anything Lisa wanted. $12 million that could do enormous good in the world. Lisa tears the check in half. She tears it in half because the money came from Burns, because accepting it would feel like endorsing his methods, because her moral purity matters more to her than the actual tangible good that $12 million could accomplish. And what happens next? Homer, who is watching this unfold, has 4 simultaneous heart attacks. He thinks Lisa just turned down $12,000, which is already devastating to him. When Lisa sheepishly corrects him and explains that 10% of $120 million is actually $12 million, Homer has another series of heart attacks severe enough to trigger a code blue. Lisa's moral absolutism literally sends her father to the hospital. Twice. Her principles nearly kill him. And while the show plays this for comedy, there is a real question buried in there. Is Lisa actually doing good in the world? Or is she so committed to feeling righteous that she sacrifices real opportunities to make things better? This is a pattern that repeats throughout the series. Lisa converts to Buddhism in season 13, which is her right, but the way she does it involves publicly rejecting her family's church and creating tension with Marge that lasts for episodes. She supports environmental causes, but her methods in the episode Trash of the Titans area involve guilt-tripping and lecturing rather than building coalitions. She is right about the science, she is right about the ethics, but she delivers her rightness like a hammer. The lowest rated episode in the entire series, Lisa Goes Gaga from season 23, has an IMDb rating hovering around 3.9 to 4.5 out of 10. It is widely considered the worst Simpsons episode ever made. And while the episode itself is more of a failure in writing than a failure of Lisa's character, it does crystallize something about her. In the episode, Lady Gaga comes to Springfield specifically to help Lisa with her self-esteem. And Lisa rejects the help, not because it is bad advice and not because Gaga is wrong, but because Lisa can only accept help on her own terms from sources she considers intellectually worthy. She turns away kindness because it doesn't come in the right package. Now let's zoom out and look at Lisa's relationship with Bart, because this is where her worst tendencies become most visible. Throughout the series, Bart rarely gets genuine victories. He is the underachiever, the troublemaker, the kid who struggles in school and acts out for attention. On the rare occasions when something goes right for Bart, Lisa has a troubling habit of being unable to let him have it. When Bart gets his first A in The Old Man and the Lisa-era episodes, the family celebrates, but the dynamic of the Simpson household is built around Lisa being the smart one and Bart being the problem child. Any shift in that dynamic threatens Lisa's identity. She does not sabotage Bart overtly, she is too smart for that. But there is a recurring undercurrent of competitiveness that goes beyond normal sibling rivalry into something closer to territorial behavior over intellectual status. In the episode Lisa on Ice from season 6, both Lisa and Bart join competing hockey teams. The episode builds to a moment where Homer literally pits his children against each other, promising to love the winner more. This is Homer's fault, obviously, but the episode reveals how deep the competition between Lisa and Bart runs. They are both willing to destroy each other to win their father's approval. Lisa, the supposed moral compass, is just as ruthless as Bart when the stakes are personal. So why does Lisa rank as the least evil character on this list? Because despite everything I just described, Lisa's damage is emotional and financial, never physical. She does not hurt people with her fists. She does not commit violent crimes. She does not endanger lives. Her weapon is moral superiority, and while that weapon can be devastating, it does not leave the same kind of wreckage that other characters on this list create. Lisa is the character who would rather be right than happy. She would rather maintain her principles than cash a $12 million check. She would rather get a restraining order than work things out with her brother. She would rather lecture the town about recycling than compromise with imperfect allies. Compared to genuinely dangerous characters like Sideshow Bob, who has tried to kill a child for over 2 decades, or Mr. Burns, who once tried to permanently block out the sun, Lisa's sins are minor. She is not evil. She is not dangerous. She is just so convinced of her own righteousness that she cannot see the harm she causes along the way. And the hardest part, she's usually right about the issues. The environment does need saving. Recycling does matter. Education does deserve better funding. Lisa's causes are good causes. Her methods are the problem. She pursues justice the way Homer pursues donuts, with a single-mindedness that ignores everything else. Lisa Simpson is the least evil character on this list because her crimes are crimes of conviction rather than crimes of malice. She hurts people because she cares too much about being right, not because she wants to see them suffer. In a town full of criminals, idiots, and sociopaths, Lisa stands out as someone who could be a genuine force for good if only she could get out of her own way. But at least Lisa has principles. The next character on our list has principles too. She is a loving mother, a patient wife, and the glue that holds the Simpson family together. At least that is what she tells herself. Because when Marge Simpson finally cracks, the things she does are far worse than anything Lisa has ever attempted. Marge Simpson, the enabler who snaps. Marge is the character that the entire show depends on. Without Marge, there is no Simpson family. Homer would be dead, in prison, or living under a bridge. Bart would have been expelled permanently. Lisa would have run away to some gifted academy. Maggie would probably be fine, actually. But the point stands. Marge is the load-bearing wall of this household. She cooks, she cleans, she manages the budget. She puts out the fires that Homer starts both literally and figuratively. And she does all of it with a patience that borders on superhuman. But that patience comes at a cost. And when Marge finally hits her breaking point, the things she does are genuinely shocking. Let's start with Codependence Day from season 15. This episode contains what might be the single most infuriating thing Homer has ever done to Marge. And Marge's response to it reveals everything wrong with their marriage. Homer and Marge go to a wine tasting event. They have a great time, they bond over drinks, they keep drinking, they drink for several days straight. Eventually, completely hammered, they try to drive home. Homer is behind the wheel. He crashes the car. Now here is where it gets ugly. Homer knows that if he gets caught with another DUI, he is going to lose his license. Maybe go to jail. So while Marge is passed out drunk, Homer moves her into the driver's seat. He frames his own wife for his drunk driving. Marge wakes up, has no idea what happened, and gets arrested. She is charged with DUI. She is forced to attend AA meetings. Her reputation in the community is destroyed, and Marge accepts it. She goes to the meetings, she does the work, she believes she was driving because she was too drunk to remember otherwise. Her own husband let her believe she committed a crime that he committed, and she took the punishment without question. Eventually, Homer confesses. And Marge is furious, but here is the worst part. She forgives him. She always forgives him. That is Marge's actual worst quality, not the occasional crime or the rare moment of violence. It is the forgiveness. It is the enabling. It is the fact that Homer has done catastrophic things to this family hundreds of times, and Marge keeps taking him back. Think about what Homer has done across the series. He has strangled their son regularly since Bart was a toddler. He has spent the family savings on everything from bowling balls to trampolines to a helper monkey. He framed Marge for DUI. He caused Maud Flanders' death through his stupidity at a racetrack. He dumped a silo of pig waste into Springfield's lake, causing the entire town to be trapped under a government dome. He has been to jail over a dozen times. He bought a gun and nearly got Milhouse killed when Bart found it. And Marge stays, every time. She yells, she cries, she gives ultimatums, and then she stays. In the Cartridge Family from season 9, Marge gives Homer a clear ultimatum about his gun. She says that until he gets rid of it, she and the kids will not stay with him. She actually leaves. She checks into a motel. This is one of the few times Marge follows through on a threat. But even then, she comes back after Homer uses the gun to accidentally save the day during a robbery at the motel. The lesson Homer learns is that guns solve problems. The lesson Marge fails to teach is that actions have lasting consequences. Now let's talk about the times Marge herself crosses the line, because she does. And when she does, it is often more disturbing than Homer's antics because we expect so much better from her. Marge in Chains, Season 4, Episode 21. Marge is exhausted, she is overworked, she is taken for granted by every member of her family. And during a trip to the Quickie Mart, she accidentally shoplifts a bottle of bourbon. She did not mean to steal it. She forgot it was in her coat because she was distracted taking care of everyone else's needs. But she gets caught, charged, and sent to jail. The scene at the trial is classic Simpsons. The judge is about to let her off with a warning, but Homer's behavior in the courtroom makes things worse. By the time Homer finishes being an idiot, Marge is sentenced to actual prison time. While she is gone, the house falls apart. The family cannot function without her. The food goes bad, the house gets filthy, the kids struggle. Springfield itself seems to deteriorate. This episode reveals two things about Marge. First, she is so overwhelmed by her family's demands that she literally cannot remember her own actions. Second, the entire Simpson household is built on the exploitation of her labor. Without Marge doing everything, nothing works, and nobody appreciates it until she is gone. Now let's look at scenes from the class struggle in Springfield, Season 7. Marge finds a Chanel suit at a discount store and starts wearing it to a local country club. She is accepted by the wealthy women there, and for the first time in years, Marge feels like she belongs somewhere. She feels valued for herself, not as Homer's wife or Bart's mother or the family maid. But to maintain the illusion, Marge has to keep modifying and altering the same suit because she cannot afford to buy more expensive clothes. She lies about her background. She pretends to be someone she is not. She drags her family into the deception. And the episode builds to a moment where Marge has to choose between maintaining the lie and being honest about who she really is. She chooses honesty, eventually, but the episode shows how desperate Marge is for any form of identity outside her family. She has given so much of herself to Homer and the kids that she does not know who Marge Simpson actually is anymore. And when she gets a taste of being seen as an individual, she is willing to lie and deceive to keep that feeling alive. This connects to a broader pattern. In multiple episodes, when Marge gets even a small taste of independence or recognition, she goes too far. When she becomes a police officer in the Springfield Connection, Season 6, she starts enforcing every petty law in town. She arrests Homer for illegal parking. She writes tickets for littering. She becomes drunk on the small amount of authority she has never been allowed to have. When she discovers she has talent as a carpenter in Please Homer, Don't Hammer Him from Season 18, she has to hide behind Homer as a front because nobody in Springfield will hire a female carpenter. Homer takes all the credit for Marge's work. She is forced to do her job invisibly because the town is too sexist to acknowledge her skills. And when she finally speaks up about wanting recognition, Homer refuses to give up the spotlight. This is Marge's tragedy. She is the most capable person in the Simpson family. She is smarter than Homer, more responsible than Bart, more practically skilled than Lisa, and more emotionally mature than all of them combined. But the role the family has assigned her, wife, mother, caretaker, cook, cleaner, peacekeeper, leaves no room for Marge to be anything else. And when she tries to break out of that role, she either goes too far or gets pulled back in. So what is the worst thing Marge Simpson has done? It is not shoplifting. It is not lying to the country club. It is not becoming a power-tripping cop. The worst thing Marge Simpson has ever done is enable Homer Simpson for 35 years. She has watched him strangle their son. She has watched him blow the family savings. She has watched him endanger their lives, destroy their property, and humiliate them in front of the entire town. And she has forgiven him every single time. Marge is not a villain. She's not even a bad person. She is a good person trapped in a situation that she lacks the willingness to escape. She has the intelligence to know better. She has the skills to survive on her own. She has every reason to leave. But she stays because she loves Homer and because the show requires her to stay and because 3.5 decades of television have turned her into the most overqualified enabler in animation history. Compared to other characters on this list, Marge's damage is primarily self-inflicted. She hurts herself by staying. She hurts her children by teaching them that this kind of marriage is normal. But she does not blow up buildings or kidnap people or try to block out the sun. Her worst acts are sins of omission, things she should have done and did not, rather than sins of commission. Marge enables, she suppresses, she forgives when she should not. And every time she snaps, it is a brief volcanic eruption followed by a return to the status quo. She is the ticking time bomb who keeps resetting her own timer. But the person she enables more than anyone, the person who benefits most from Marge's infinite patience, is not Homer. It is her son. And that son has earned his reputation as Springfield's most notorious troublemaker through decades of dedicated chaos. Bart Simpson, the Chaos Agent. In the early days of The Simpsons, back when the show was still finding its identity in the late 80s and early 90s, Bart was the star. He was on t-shirts, he was on lunchboxes. His catchphrase, "Eat my shorts," was being repeated by every kid in America. Parents hated him. Schools banned Simpsons merchandise because teachers were worried about his influence. George H.W. Bush, the actual president of the United States, once said that American families should be more like the Waltons and less like the Simpsons. And he was talking about Bart specifically. And honestly, those parents and teachers were right to be worried, because when you actually sit down and catalog everything Bart Simpson has done across 35 years of television, the list reads less like a sitcom character's rap sheet and more like a career criminal's file. Let's start with one of the darkest Bart episodes in the series, Bart the Murderer, Season 3, Episode 4. Bart is having the worst day of his life. He misses the bus, falls down a hill, loses his permission slip, gets detention, and then while skating home in the rain, crashes into the stairway entrance of a building. That building turns out to be the hideout of Fat Tony's mob. Instead of running away like any sensible 10-year-old would, Bart impresses Fat Tony with his bartending skills. He starts making drinks for mobsters. He becomes a regular fixture at the mob headquarters, serving cocktails to criminals and becoming, for all practical purposes, an accessory to organized crime. He is 10 years old and he is bartending for the mafia. Then Principal Skinner goes missing. The entire town suspects that Bart had Skinner killed because Skinner was giving him a hard time at school. Bart goes to trial for murder. He is eventually cleared because Skinner turns up alive, buried under a pile of newspapers in his own garage. But the fact remains that Bart willingly embedded himself with violent criminals, and nobody, not Homer, not Marge, nobody intervened in any meaningful way until it was almost too late. Now let's jump forward to The Wandering Juvie, Season 15, Episode 16. This episode shows what happens when Bart's pranks escalate from annoying to criminal. Bart discovers that department stores have wedding registries where you can scan items and people will buy them for you as gifts. So Bart creates a fake wedding registry for himself and a fictional bride named Lotta Cooties. He invites dozens of people to his supposed wedding. They all show up with gifts. Bart traps the guests inside a tent, sealing it shut. The guests start losing air and passing out from suffocation. While they are unconscious, Bart steals all the gifts and tries to escape. He gets caught by Chief Wiggum, who for once actually does his job. Bart tries to bribe him, but Wiggum only accepts cash bribes as stated on his badge, so the wedding presents do not work. Because of the scam and his extensive prior record of bad behavior, Judge Constance Harm sentences Bart to 6 months in juvenile detention. Think about that for a second. Bart created an elaborate fraud scheme. He lured innocent people to a location under false pretenses. He physically trapped them in an enclosed space where they could not breathe properly. He stole their property. And he was not even remotely sorry about any of it. He begged the judge to incarcerate his father instead, which tells you everything about where Bart's sense of personal responsibility stands. But Bart's criminal career does not stop there. In the Season 13 episode The Parent Rap, Bart and Milhouse steal Chief Wiggum's police car. They do not just sit in it and pretend. They accidentally shift it into neutral and crash it into a tree. This is Grand Theft Auto of a law enforcement vehicle. Homer had abandoned them on the side of the road to chase a radio station prize van, so there are extenuating circumstances. But Bart's first instinct when he saw an unlocked cop car was to get inside and start playing with the equipment. Judge Constance Harm, the same judge from The Wandering Juvie, shows up again and sentences Bart and Homer to be tethered together. This is a punishment designed for Bart's entire pattern of behavior, not just one incident. The judge recognizes that Bart's problems are systemic and that Homer's negligent parenting is a contributing factor. And then there is Do the Wrong Thing from season 35. This is a more recent episode that shows Bart's capacity for deception has not diminished with time. Bart and Homer bond by cheating at every blue-collar sporting event they can find. They stuff marbles and fish at fishing derbies, they rig competitions, they lie and deceive their way through multiple events just to experience the feeling of winning together. When Marge confronts them, Homer admits they have been cheating. Lisa discovers that Homer also sabotaged her college application by photoshopping her face onto fake achievements she never earned. The entire family's integrity is compromised because Bart and Homer decided that bonding through dishonesty was more fun than bonding through anything real. And the episode ends with the family being chased by every contestant they cheated, which means Bart's actions endangered his entire family. Now let's talk about Bart's lifetime of pranks, because taken individually, they seem harmless. Taken collectively, they constitute something closer to a crime wave. Bart has pranked called Moe's Tavern hundreds of times. He has caused explosions at school. He has vandalized public property. He stole the head off the Jebediah Springfield statue in the very first season. He has been suspended and expelled multiple times. He released animals in the school. He put cherry bombs in toilets. He flooded hallways. He drove his teachers to mental breakdowns. In the episode Bart Gets Famous from season 5, Bart becomes a celebrity through the catchphrase, "I didn't do it." The irony is that Bart always did do it. The catchphrase became famous because it was a lie, and America loved the lie because it was funny. But behind every "I didn't do it" was something Bart absolutely did do. There is also the matter of Bart's indirect responsibility for Maud Flanders' death. In the season 11 episode Alone Again, Natra Diddley, Maud Flanders is killed at a racetrack when t-shirt cannons fire into the crowd. Homer is the direct cause. He was waving his arms and painting a bullseye on his chest to attract the cheerleaders' attention. But Bart's influence on Homer cannot be ignored. Homer's reckless, attention-seeking, consequence-blind behavior is a trait he shares with Bart, and arguably learned from watching his son as much as Bart learned it from watching him. They amplify each other's worst impulses. In Marge vs. the Monorail Season 4, one of the most beloved episodes in the series, Bart is enthusiastically supportive of the monorail project that nearly destroys Springfield. He does not question it, he does not think critically about it, he just thinks it sounds cool. This is minor compared to his other offenses, but it illustrates Bart's fundamental approach to life. If something is exciting, he is in. Consequences are for later, or preferably for someone else to deal with. Now let's talk about the episode that reveals the single most disturbing thing in Bart's entire psychological profile. In Barting Over from season 14, the 300th episode, Bart discovers that Homer exploited him as a baby. Homer had infant Bart star in a commercial for baby mouthwash. The product was called Baby Stink Breath, and it used footage of Bart as a baby being humiliated on camera. Bart made money from these commercials, but Homer spent it all. On what? On purchasing incriminating photos of Homer dropping Bart as a baby from a balcony. Read that sequence again. Homer dropped baby Bart off a balcony. Someone photographed it. Homer used Bart's commercial earnings to buy those photos so nobody would see them. This means Homer nearly killed Bart through negligence as an infant, then used Bart's own money to cover it up. When Bart finds out, he is furious. He legally emancipates himself from his parents and moves into his own apartment. He has every right to be angry. But the show eventually resets and Bart goes back home because the show always resets. This is Bart's tragedy. Unlike Lisa, who is self-righteous, or Homer, who is stupid, Bart is actually perceptive. He knows his father is terrible. He knows his family is dysfunctional. He can see the problems clearly. But he lacks the emotional tools to do anything about them. So he channels his frustration into chaos. Every prank is a cry for attention. Every act of vandalism is a response to neglect. Every crime is a 10-year-old saying, "Look at me because nobody is looking at me at home." Bart is not evil. He is a neglected kid acting out in a town that has no functional systems to help him. School fails him. His parents fail him. The justice system alternates between ignoring him and overreacting. He has been to juvie, worked for the mob, committed fraud, vandalism, theft, and contributed to an environment so chaotic that his family was literally banished from Springfield. But here's why Bart does not rank higher on this list. His crimes, while numerous, are never truly malicious in the way that some characters' actions are. He does not want to hurt people. He wants attention, excitement, and the feeling that he matters. His methods are terrible, but his motivations are understandable. Compared to what comes next on this list, Bart is practically an amateur because everything Bart does, he learned from watching one man, the king of Springfield's chaos, the most dangerous idiot in television history, his father, Homer Simpson, the walking disaster. If you were to compile a complete list of every crime Homer Simpson has committed across the entire run of The Simpsons, it would be longer than most legal textbooks. This is not an exaggeration. Fans have actually tried to count them. The list includes environmental catastrophe, negligent homicide, assault, fraud, theft, arson, destruction of public property, reckless endangerment, possession of illegal firearms, tax evasion, bribery, impersonating government officials, and quite possibly treason depending on how you interpret certain episodes. Homer has been to jail so many times that the Springfield Police Department probably has a reserved cell with his name on it. But what makes Homer different from other criminal characters in animation is that he is not a villain. He is not plotting anything. He does not have evil intentions. Homer Simpson is simply so profoundly, consistently, aggressively stupid that he leaves a trail of destruction behind him everywhere he goes. And because he is an adult with a job, a car, a family, and occasionally access to firearms or municipal authority, his stupidity is weaponized in ways that Chris Griffin or Patrick Starr could never match. Let's start with what might be the most morally indefensible thing Homer has ever done. The episode is Homer Simpson in kidney trouble from season 10. The setup is important because it shows exactly how Homer's chain of negligence works. The family is driving home from a trip. Grandpa, Homer's elderly father, says he needs to use the bathroom. Homer refuses to pull over. He just keeps driving. Grandpa begs. Homer ignores him. The situation gets worse and worse until finally, because Homer would not stop the car, both of Grandpa's kidneys explode. Homer's refusal to make a simple, basic, completely reasonable pit stop causes his own father's organs to fail. This is not an accident. This is deliberate negligence. Grandpa said he needed to stop. Homer chose not to. Now comes the part that fans cite as Homer at his absolute worst. Homer, feeling guilty, agrees to donate one of his own kidneys to save his father's life. This is the right thing to do. It is quite literally the least he could do given that he caused the problem. The surgery is scheduled. Grandpa is prepped. Hope exists. Homer runs away. Right before the surgery, Homer gets scared and bolts from the hospital. He abandons his dying father on the operating table. Grandpa is lying there, hooked up to machines, waiting for the kidney that will save his life, and Homer is gone. But it gets worse. Homer eventually feels guilty again and comes back. He agrees to the surgery again. Grandpa's hopes are raised a second time, and then Homer runs away again. He gives his father hope and crushes it twice. The only reason Grandpa survives is that Homer gets into an accident on his way out of the hospital the second time, and the doctors take his kidney while he is unconscious. Grandpa does not receive a kidney because his son did the right thing. He receives a kidney because his son was incapacitated and could not run away a third time. This episode aired in season 10, which the show's own creative team has acknowledged as the beginning of what fans call jerk-ass Homer. The characterization of Homer shifted from lovable idiot who makes mistakes to genuinely selfish person who causes harm without meaningful remorse. The kidney episode is the purest expression of this shift. Now let's talk about the biggest single act of destruction Homer has ever caused. The Simpsons movie from 2007. Homer adopts a pig from Krusty Burger. He loves this pig. He names it Spider Pig. He takes better care of this pig than he takes care of his own children, which is saying something. He collects the pig's waste in a silo until the silo is overflowing with feces. The EPA has been monitoring Springfield's lake because it is already dangerously polluted. Lisa has been campaigning to clean it up. The town has put up barriers and signs warning people not to dump anything into the water. Homer needs to dispose of the pig waste silo. The responsible thing to do would be to take it to a proper disposal facility. The cheap thing to do would be to dump it somewhere on land. Homer chooses the catastrophic option. He dumps the entire silo into Springfield's lake. This causes an environmental disaster so severe that the EPA places the entire town under a giant glass dome. Springfield is sealed off from the outside world. The government eventually decides to simply destroy the town entirely, with all the residents still inside. Thousands of people nearly die because Homer could not be bothered to dispose of pig waste properly. And when the dome goes up, what does Homer do? Does he try to fix the problem he caused? Does he take responsibility? Does he help his neighbors? He convinces his family to escape through a sinkhole and flee to Alaska. He literally runs away from the consequences of his actions while the entire town faces annihilation. Marge eventually leaves Homer over this, and honestly, it should have been permanent. She records a video saying she is done with him. The marriage should be over. Homer has caused the potential death of every person in their town, and his response was to run. But because this is The Simpsons, and because the movie needs a happy ending, Homer comes back, saves the town, and everything resets. Let's look at another disaster of a different kind. Trash of the Titans, Season 9, Episode 22. This is the 200th episode of the series, and it features one of Homer's most destructive decisions. Homer gets into an argument with his garbage collectors. They stop picking up his trash. Instead of apologizing or finding a reasonable solution, Homer decides to run for sanitation commissioner. He campaigns on insane promises, including 24-hour garbage pickup and citywide cleanup services. He wins because Springfield voters are exactly as gullible as you would expect. Once in office, Homer blows the entire annual sanitation budget in a single month. He buys fancy new trucks. He hires unnecessary employees. He creates a spectacle of efficiency that cannot possibly be sustained. When the money runs out, Homer cuts a deal with other cities. He allows them to dump their garbage in abandoned mines under Springfield. The garbage eventually erupts. It comes up through the ground, through the streets, through people's homes. Springfield becomes literally unlivable. The solution? The entire town has to be physically moved 5 miles down the road. They pick up Springfield and relocate it because Homer's garbage scheme made the original location toxic. Marge's response to this disaster is telling. As they watch the town being moved, she says to Homer, "This is the worst thing you have ever done." And Homer responds that she has said that so many times it has lost its meaning. He is correct. She has said it dozens of times. It has lost its meaning. Because every time Marge says it, she forgives him afterward. And every time she forgives him, Homer learns that there are no real consequences for his actions. Now let's talk about the Cartridge Family, Season 9, Episode 5. This is the gun episode, and it showcases Homer at his most irresponsible in a way that involves real danger to children. After a soccer riot frightens the family, Homer decides to buy a gun for protection. Marge does not want a gun in the house. She begs him not to buy one. Homer buys it anyway, and immediately begins using it for everything except self-defense. He uses the gun to open beer cans. He uses it to turn off the television. He shoots dinner plates out of the air while Bart acts as the trap puller. He fires it inside the house. He carries it into the Quick E-Mart. The NRA, an organization not known for being strict about gun safety, kicks Homer out. They tell him he is too reckless. When the actual NRA says you are handling a gun irresponsibly, you have reached a special level of incompetence. Marge begs Homer to get rid of the gun. He promises to do it. Instead, he hides it in the vegetable crisper. Bart finds it. Bart and Milhouse start playing with a loaded firearm. They play William Tell in the kitchen, which means Milhouse puts an apple on his head and Bart prepares to shoot it off. Marge walks in just in time to prevent what could have been a child's death. Homer's gun negligence could have killed Milhouse, not in a hypothetical, theoretical way. In a Bart is pointing a loaded gun at Milhouse's head kind of way. And Homer's response when confronted? Denial and deflection. Always denial and deflection. This brings us to perhaps the most consequential thing Homer has ever caused, the death of Maud Flanders. In Alone Again. Natura Diddley, Season 11, the Simpson and Flanders families attend a racetrack event. Homer becomes obsessed with the cheerleaders' t-shirt cannons. He wants a free shirt. He takes off his own shirt and waves it around. He paints a bullseye on his bare chest. He makes himself the most visible, obnoxious target in the entire stadium. The cheerleaders fire. They aim at Homer. Homer bends down to pick something up at exactly the wrong moment. The t-shirts sail over him and hit Maude Flanders, who is sitting in the row behind him. The impact knocks Maude off the back of the bleachers. She falls, she dies. Homer Simpson's narcissistic, attention-seeking behavior at a public event directly causes the death of his neighbor's wife. Ned Flanders loses his partner, his soulmate, the mother of his children, because Homer could not sit still and watch a race like a normal person. The show retired the character of Maude permanently. Voice actress Maggie Roswell had a contract dispute that led to the character being written out. But within the show's narrative, Maude is dead because Homer could not stop being Homer for 5 minutes. And the sickest part? Homer barely faces consequences. Ned grieves, the Flanders boys lose their mother, the entire community mourns, and Homer continues living next door, continues being loud and selfish and reckless as if nothing happened. Because in Springfield, nothing ever really happened. Everything resets, everything is forgiven. And that is maybe the most disturbing thing about Homer Simpson, not any single act but the pattern. The complete, systemic inability to learn, change, or grow, combined with a world that keeps giving him chances he has not earned and does not deserve. But we are not done with Homer, not even close. Let's talk about Homer versus Dignity from season 12. In this episode, the Simpson family is broke again. Homer needs money. He goes to Mr. Burns and asks for a raise. Burns, being Burns, does not give him a raise. Instead, he offers Homer a deal. Burns will pay Homer money if Homer agrees to humiliate himself and others on command. Homer becomes Burns' personal prank monkey. The prank starts small. Burns tells Homer to throw a dish of pudding at Lenny. Homer does it. Burns laughs and pays him. Then the pranks escalate. Burns has Homer perform increasingly degrading acts for money. Homer goes along with every single one because the money is too good and Homer's dignity is apparently worth less than a few $100s. The worst moment comes when Burns orchestrates a prank at the Springfield Zoo. Homer has to dress up as a female panda. The plan is for this to be funny. But the zoo's male panda, Ping Ping, does not realize Homer is a human in a costume. Ping Ping becomes attracted to Homer's panda disguise and mates with him. Homer is sexually assaulted by a panda at the zoo on camera as part of a paid prank arranged by his employer. When Homer tries to escape, he gets caught on the fence and the head of his panda costume falls off, revealing his identity. Lisa is there. She sees her father, half out of a panda suit, after being assaulted by an animal, all because he agreed to degrade himself for money. Lisa tells Homer he needs to stand up to Burns. And Homer knows she is right, but the fact that it took his daughter witnessing something that traumatic for Homer to reconsider his choices says everything about his decision-making process. There's also the matter of Homer's relationship with alcohol, which has been a defining character trait since the very first episode. Homer drinks at Moe's Tavern constantly. He drives drunk regularly. He has caused accidents, destroyed property, and endangered his family while intoxicated more times than anyone can count. His famous quote, "Alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems," is played as a joke. But if you count the number of times Homer's drinking has directly led to harm, the joke stops being funny pretty quickly. In the very first episode of the series, Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire, Homer discovers he will not be getting a Christmas bonus from Mr. Burns. Already strapped for cash because he had to spend money getting Bart's tattoo removed, Homer takes a second job as a mall Santa. The job pays almost nothing. Then Homer takes the money he does have and gambles it at the dog track, losing everything. The family's Christmas is saved only because Homer adopts a losing greyhound named Santa's Little Helper. But the underlying message is clear from episode 1. Homer's financial recklessness and poor judgment are going to be recurring problems, and they are, for 35 years and counting. Let's also discuss the episode where Homer literally almost caused a nuclear meltdown. King-size Homer from season 7. Homer wants to work from home, so he intentionally gains enough weight to qualify as disabled. He gets up to 300 pounds. He achieves his goal of working from home, where his job is to monitor a single console at the nuclear power plant remotely. Homer gets bored. He uses a drinking bird toy to press the Y key on his keyboard repeatedly so he does not have to actually do his job. He goes to a movie. While he is gone, the system fails. A nuclear meltdown begins at the Springfield nuclear power plant. Homer rushes back and manages to prevent the disaster, but only barely and only by accident. He nearly caused a Chernobyl-level catastrophe because he was too lazy to press a button. This is the fundamental Homer Simpson problem. He works at a nuclear power plant. He is directly responsible for the safety of nuclear material. And he is the least qualified, least attentive, least responsible person who could possibly hold that position. The fact that Springfield has not been wiped off the map by a nuclear disaster is a miracle of cartoon physics. Homer has also displayed deeply troubling behavior toward his own daughter toward his own daughter Lisa. In Homer and Lisa Exchange Crosswords from season 20, Homer discovers that Lisa has become obsessed with crossword puzzles and entered a tournament. Homer bets against Lisa, wagering that she will lose. When Lisa finds out her own father bet against her, she is devastated. Homer did not bet against Lisa because he wanted her to fail. He bet against her because the odds were good and Homer cannot resist easy money. But the damage is the same. His daughter learned that her father valued a gambling payout more than her success. And then there is the episode that established how Homer treats his extended family. Oh, brother, where art thou from season 2? Homer discovers he has a long-lost half-brother named Herb Powell, voiced by Danny DeVito. Herb is a successful car manufacturer. He is wealthy, smart, and genuinely happy to meet Homer. He welcomes the Simpsons into his home and his life. Herb gives Homer one job: design a car that appeals to the average consumer. Homer's design includes a horn that plays La Cucaracha, multiple soundproof domes so the kids cannot be heard, a separate bubble for the back seat, and dozens of other insane features. The resulting car is so expensive and so impractical that it bankrupts Herb's entire company. Herb loses everything: his fortune, his business, his employees' livelihoods, all of it destroyed because Homer designed a car like Homer would design a car. Herb does eventually rebuild his fortune in a later episode using a baby translator invention. But Homer's reward for ruining and then indirectly helping rebuild his brother's life? A single vibrating chair. That is it. Homer bankrupted a car company and all he got out of it was a chair. So where does Homer rank on the overall crazy scale of this list? He is one of the most dangerous characters in the show, but he is not the most evil. The distinction matters. Homer does not plan to cause harm. He does not scheme. He does not calculate. Every disaster Homer creates comes from the same source. He is an impulsive, selfish, functionally stupid man who has been given enough resources and freedom to cause catastrophic damage, and he operates in a world with no lasting consequences. If Homer lived in reality, he would be in prison, permanently. The kidney abandonment alone would be criminal negligence. The gun incidents would be felony reckless endangerment. The environmental disaster from the pig silo would be a federal crime. Causing Maud Flanders' death through his recklessness would lead to, at minimum, a wrongful death lawsuit and potentially involuntary manslaughter charges. But Homer does not live in reality. He lives in Springfield, where everything resets and nothing sticks. And that is maybe the scariest thing about him. Homer proves that you do not need to be evil to be dangerous. You do not need malicious intent. You do not need a plan. You just need to be stupid enough, selfish enough, and lucky enough to keep getting away with it. Homer Simpson. Too dumb to know he is dangerous, too functional to be stopped, too loved to be held accountable. Now, if you are still with me, we are about to shift gears. We have been talking about the Simpson family, characters who are flawed but fundamentally human. They love each other, they make mistakes, they occasionally learn something, even if they forget it by next week. The next section of this list is different. We are moving into characters who exist outside the Simpson family, characters whose worst acts are not the result of family dysfunction or stupidity. These are people whose darkness comes from somewhere deeper, and we are starting with the man who lives right next door. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this breakdown, make sure to subscribe. You will want to be here for what comes next. Ned Flanders, the saint who cracked. Ned Flanders is Homer Simpson's next-door neighbor, and for most of the show's run, he has been portrayed as the nicest man in Springfield. He is devoutly religious, he is unfailingly polite. He volunteers for everything. He coaches Little League. He runs the Leftorium, a store for left-handed people. He greets everyone with a cheerful, hi diddly ho. He is so relentlessly pleasant that Homer, who cannot stand anyone being happier than him, considers Ned his personal nemesis, but underneath all that friendliness, something darker has always been lurking. And the show has revealed it in pieces over the years, building a portrait of a man whose niceness is not natural, it is engineered. And when the engineering fails, the real Ned Flanders emerges. The defining episode for understanding Ned's psychology is Hurricane Nettie from Season 8. A hurricane hits Springfield and destroys the Flanders home. It is the only house on the block that is completely leveled. The rest of the neighborhood is fine. Homer's house, despite being less well maintained, survives without major damage. Ned's house, the house of the most devout, generous, and rule-following citizen in town, is obliterated. The town rallies to rebuild Ned's house. This seems like a heartwarming moment, the community coming together for one of their own. But the townspeople, being the townspeople, do a terrible job. The rebuilt house is a structural disaster. Doors lead to walls, rooms are the wrong size. Nothing works. When Ned walks through the house and sees what they have done, something breaks inside him. Ned explodes. He goes on a rant that tears through every person in Springfield. He calls Homer the worst human being he has ever met. He tells Lenny his lunch stinks. He insults Moe. He rips into person after person with surgical precision, identifying each person's worst quality and throwing it in their face. This is not generic anger. This is specific, detailed, deeply felt rage that has been building for years. The episode then reveals Ned's backstory. As a child, Ned was a complete terror. He was violent, destructive, and uncontrollable. His parents, who were beatniks, took him to a child psychologist. The psychologist spent 8 months using an experimental therapy technique that essentially reprogrammed Ned's personality. The therapy suppressed his rage and replaced it with compulsive niceness. Ned's entire personality, the high diddly-ho, the neighborliness, the relentless optimism, all of it is a psychological construct built to contain a fundamentally angry person. This reframes everything about Ned. Every time he smiles at Homer after Homer destroys his property, every time he forgives a slight, every time he turns the other cheek, he is not being naturally kind. He is performing kindness as a coping mechanism. The real Ned, the one that existed before the therapy, is furious, and the therapy only works as long as the pressure stays below a certain threshold. Hurricane Nettie shows what happens when that threshold is crossed, and the show has crossed it again in smaller ways throughout the series. After Maude dies, killed by t-shirts launched because of Homer's behavior at the racetrack, Ned's suppressed rage gets harder to contain. He dates younger women. He becomes more judgmental. His religious views, always conservative, start to harden into something closer to zealotry. In various Treehouse of Horror episodes, which are non-canon but still revealing about how the writers view the characters, Ned has been portrayed as Satan, as a serial killer, and as other dark figures. The writers clearly see Ned's potential for darkness and enjoy exploring it in contexts where canon does not apply. But even in canon episodes, Ned's worst quality is his judgment. He judges everyone around him against his own moral standards and finds them wanting. He is polite about it, usually, but the judgment is always there. When Homer does something stupid, Ned does not just feel frustrated, he feels morally superior. When Bart misbehaves, Ned does not just feel concern for his neighbor's child, he feels vindicated in his belief that the Simpson family is fundamentally broken. This judgment is Ned's real worst act. He has spent decades positioning himself as Springfield's moral authority, looking down on everyone from his carefully constructed pedestal of niceness. And the entire pedestal is built on childhood therapy, not genuine virtue. Ned is not naturally good. He was psychologically programmed to simulate goodness, and he has spent his entire adult life taking credit for the simulation. The worst thing Ned Flanders has ever done is pretend that his goodness is real while secretly judging everyone else for not being as good as him. He is a manufactured saint using engineered virtue to feel superior to flawed but genuine people. And the one time his programming failed, Hurricane Nettie, the real Ned, came out, and it was ugly. Compared to the violent criminals and sociopaths coming up on this list, Ned's sins are mild. He has not killed anyone. He has not committed fraud. He has not endangered lives. But his hypocrisy, the gap between who he pretends to be and who he actually is, makes him more complex and more unsettling than his friendly exterior suggests. Ned hides his darkness behind a Bible and a smile. The next character hides his behind a big red nose and a television camera. Krusty the Clown, the corrupt entertainer, Herschel Schmoikel Pinchas Yerucham Krustovsky. That is Krusty the Clown's real name. And honestly, you could argue that the worst thing about Krusty starts right there, with the fact that he abandoned his real identity, his real name, his real heritage, and his father's wishes to become a clown. His father, Rabbi Hyman Krustovsky, wanted Krusty to follow him into the rabbinate. Instead, Krusty ran away to show business and spent decades estranged from his father. When his father finally died in the season 26 premiere Clown in the Dumps, Krusty had never fully earned his approval. That is not Krusty's worst act, but it is the foundation that everything else is built on. Krusty became a performer because he wanted love and adulation, and he has spent his entire career destroying anyone who gets between him and the spotlight. Let's start with the big one. Krusty the Clown created Sideshow Bob. Not literally, of course. Sideshow Bob existed before he joined Krusty's show. But Krusty's treatment of Bob is what transformed a cultured, intelligent man into one of Springfield's most dangerous criminals. Bob was Krusty's sidekick for years, and during that time, Krusty abused him constantly. He humiliated Bob on live television. He made Bob the butt of every joke. He shot Bob out of cannons. He hit Bob with pies. He treated Bob as subhuman for the entertainment of children. The show makes it clear, particularly in Krusty Gets Busted from season 1, that Bob's criminal turn was a direct response to years of abuse at Krusty's hands. Bob framed Krusty for armed robbery because he was tired of being degraded. Everything that followed, Bob's attempts to murder Bart, his election fraud, his nuclear bomb threats, his decades of criminal behavior, all of it traces back to Krusty's mistreatment. Krusty did not just abuse an employee, he created a supervillain. And did Krusty learn anything from this? Did he treat his subsequent sidekicks better? He replaced Bob with Sideshow Mel, and while the show does not emphasize Mel's mistreatment as much, the dynamic is clearly similar. Mel is a performing monkey for Krusty's amusement. The only difference is that Mel has not snapped yet. Beyond creating a nemesis for Bart Simpson, Krusty's show has been a disaster for children in general. His products are dangerous, his show is lazily produced, he endorses anything for money regardless of quality or safety. The Krusty brand has been slapped on everything from hamburgers to home pregnancy tests, and the quality control is non-existent. In the episode Homer and Apu from season 5, Homer gets food poisoning from expired meat sold at the Quick E-Mart, a store that carries Krusty-branded products. The entire supply chain of Krusty's empire is built on cutting corners. Then there is Krusty's personal life, which is a wreck by any standard. He is a gambling addict. He owes money to dangerous people. He has evaded taxes for years. In Like Father, Like Clown from season 3, we learn that Krusty's relationship with his father is so damaged that it takes the intervention of Bart and Lisa to broker a reconciliation. And even then, the reconciliation is fragile and impermanent. In Krusty Gets Cancelled from season 4, Krusty loses his show to a new ventriloquist act called Gabbo. Without his show, Krusty falls apart completely. He becomes depressed, penniless, and isolated. Every friend he thought he had disappears because they were never real friends. They were industry connections who valued Krusty only for what he could do for them, the same way Krusty valued them. Bart and Lisa organize a comeback special featuring real celebrities, and Krusty returns to television. But the episode reveals something important. Without his show, Krusty has nothing, no identity, no relationships, no purpose. He is a man who sacrificed his family, his integrity, and his sidekick's sanity for fame. And when the fame disappeared, there was nothing left underneath. The worst thing Krusty has done is not a single act. It is a career of exploitation. He exploited Sideshow Bob until Bob became a criminal. He exploited his audience with dangerous products. He exploited his father by rejecting everything the old man believed in. He exploited the trust of children who watched his show and bought his merchandise. And he exploited every friendship and relationship in his life for career advancement. Krusty is what happens when someone with talent but no integrity is given a platform. He is entertaining, charismatic, and occasionally genuinely funny. But he leaves destruction in his wake, and the people closest to him pay the highest price. If you are keeping track, we have now covered the Simpson family plus 2 of Springfield's most prominent citizens. But we are about to enter darker territory. The next character on the list is someone who has been lurking in the background of the show for decades, and his worst acts are uncomfortable in a way that goes beyond cartoon violence. Moe Sislak, the desperate loner. Moe is the owner and bartender of Moe's Tavern, the dive bar where Homer, Lenny, Carl, and Barney spend most of their free time. He has been serving drinks in that dark, miserable bar since the show began. And if you look at Moe's life from a distance, it is genuinely one of the saddest stories in the entire series. He is alone, he is ugly, and the show reminds him of this constantly. He cannot maintain a romantic relationship. He is depressed. He has attempted or contemplated suicide in multiple episodes. But sympathy for Moe can only go so far because when you look at what he has actually done across the series, the picture shifts from sad to disturbing. Let's start with Dumbbell Indemnity from Season 9. In this episode, Moe starts dating a woman named Renee. Things are going well. Moe is actually happy for once. But Renee has expensive tastes, and Moe starts spending money he does not have. When he maxes out his credit card, he does not come clean or find a way to earn more money legitimately. Instead, he decides to commit insurance fraud. Moe enlists Homer to steal his car and leave it on train tracks so a train will destroy it and Moe can collect the insurance money. Homer agrees because Homer agrees to everything. But Homer gets distracted, takes the car to a drive-in movie instead of the train tracks, and when he eventually tries to destroy the car by driving it off a cliff, he cannot get out in time. Homer and the car plummet into the water near a police charity cruise directly in view of every cop in Springfield. Homer gets arrested for grand theft auto. Homer is now in jail because of Moe's scheme. And Moe's response? He is supposed to bail Homer out. That is the deal. But Renee mentions a vacation to Hawaii, and Moe has second thoughts about spending money on Homer's bail. He considers leaving his best friend, the guy who agreed to commit a felony for him, in jail so he can go on vacation with his girlfriend. Moe's conscience eventually intervenes, and he tries to help Homer, but his plan involves burning down his own bar, which is more insurance fraud on top of the car fraud. The bar burns down, Homer escapes jail on his own. The two of them fight in the burning building until Barney saves them both. This episode reveals something fundamental about Moe. He will use the people closest to him and discard them when they are no longer useful. Homer risked his freedom for Moe, and Moe's first instinct was to abandon him for a vacation. This pattern repeats throughout the series. Moe has stolen Homer's Flaming Moe cocktail recipe and made a fortune off it without giving Homer any credit or compensation. He has attempted to woo Marge away from Homer on multiple occasions, including making moves on her during vulnerable moments. He hits on married women. He manipulates his customers' emotions to keep them drinking. In various episodes, Moe has been revealed to have connections to criminal enterprises. His bar has been used as a front for illegal activities. He keeps a shotgun under the bar, which he has brandished on multiple occasions. He is implied to have done things in his past that the show will not fully detail, with jokes that suggest a criminal history darker than what we see on screen. There is also Moe's relationship with Bart, which is one of the show's longest-running gags. Bart has been prank calling Moe's Tavern since the first season. Every time, Bart asks for a fake name. Is there a huge ass? Can I speak to Amanda Hugginkiss? I am looking for a Mr. Freely, first name IP. Moe falls for it every time, announcing the fake name to the entire bar before realizing he has been tricked. Then he threatens to kill Bart. These threats are played as comedy. But Moe consistently says things like, "When I find you, I am going to gut you like a fish." He has described in graphic detail what he would do to the prank caller if he ever found him. And while these are just jokes, they create a cumulative portrait of a man whose response to being embarrassed is violent rage. A man who regularly threatens to murder a child, even if he does not know which child he is threatening. The darkest aspect of Moe's character is his recurring suicidal ideation. Multiple episodes have shown Moe attempting or contemplating suicide. He has put his head in the oven, he has stood on ledges, he has discussed it openly. The show usually plays these moments for dark comedy, with Moe being interrupted or failing in his attempts. But underneath the jokes, there is a genuine portrait of a man in deep psychological pain. And this is where Moe's worst quality becomes clear. His loneliness and depression are real. His pain is genuine. But instead of seeking help, Moe takes his misery out on everyone around him. He steals from his friends, he preys on vulnerable women, he commits fraud, he threatens violence. He enables Homer's alcoholism for profit, serving drinks to a man he knows has a serious drinking problem because it keeps the register ringing. Moe is the character who proves that being sympathetic does not make you good. His backstory explains his behavior. His loneliness is understandable. But understanding why someone does terrible things does not make the things less terrible. Moe has committed arson, fraud, theft, and manipulation. He has endangered his best friend's life and freedom for insurance money. He has pursued his friend's wife. He has threatened children. The tragedy of Moe Seislak is that he has enough self-awareness to know he is a bad person, but not enough motivation to change. He knows he is lonely because he drives people away. He knows he is miserable because he makes choices that lead to misery. But he keeps making those choices because misery is the only thing that feels familiar. Compared to the next character on our list, Moe is a petty criminal. His worst acts are crimes of desperation from a broken man. What comes next is something fundamentally different. The next character does not commit crimes out of desperation or stupidity or loneliness. He commits them out of intellectual superiority and obsessive hatred. He is brilliant, cultured, and has spent over 2 decades trying to murder a 10-year-old boy. Sideshow Bob, the cultured psychopath. Robert Underdunk Terwilliger Jr., Ph.D., that is his full name, Yale graduate, opera enthusiast, devotee of Gilbert and Sullivan, lover of fine literature, high culture, and sophisticated conversation. He can quote Macbeth from memory. He has performed the entire score of HMS Pinafore without missing a note. He plays the violin. He speaks multiple languages. By every measure of education and refinement, Sideshow Bob is the most accomplished person in Springfield. He is also a man who has spent over 24 years trying to murder a 10-year-old boy. And that is only the beginning of his criminal record. Sideshow Bob was introduced in the very first season of The Simpsons, initially as a non-speaking sidekick on the Krusty the Clown show. He communicated through a slide whistle. He was the butt of every joke. Krusty humiliated him on live television day after day, year after year, until Bob could not take it anymore. In Krusty Gets Busted, Season 1, Episode 12, Bob frames Krusty for armed robbery at the Quick E-Mart. He disguises himself as Krusty, robs the store, and lets the real Krusty take the fall. It was a clever plan. It worked initially. Krusty was arrested and convicted. Springfield's beloved clown was behind bars. Bob took over the show and immediately elevated its quality, replacing the crude physical comedy with educational content and sophisticated programming. For a brief moment, it seemed like Bob's crime had actually improved things. But Bart Simpson, a 10-year-old kid who noticed that the robber was wearing big floppy shoes and stepped on a rake, figured out the truth. Bart proved that Bob committed the robbery, and Bob was sent to prison for the first time. This is where the vendetta begins. Bob's grudge against Bart is not about the robbery, it is about the humiliation. Bob is a genius. He planned the perfect crime, and he was undone by a child who noticed shoes. That insult to his intelligence, that proof that he could be outsmarted by a 10-year-old, is what drives everything that follows. In Black Widower, Season 3, Episode 21, Bob gets out of prison and marries Bart's Aunt Selma Bouvier. This is not a romance. This is a scheme to inherit Selma's stock market investments. Bob plans to kill Selma on their honeymoon by blowing her up. The plan is to fill the hotel room with gas from the oven while Selma sleeps, then ignite it. Bob factors in everything except one detail. Selma is a heavy smoker, and Bart realizes that Selma would have lit a cigarette after watching MacGyver, which means the gas would have ignited before Bob wanted it to. Once again, Bart foils the plan, and Bob goes back to prison. Think about what Bob did here. He courted a woman, proposed to her, married her, all for the sole purpose of killing her for money. He was prepared to murder a member of Bart's family in cold blood. This is premeditated murder. It is also deeply personal because Selma is Bart's aunt, which means Bob was targeting the Simpson extended family even at this early stage. Then comes Cape Fear from Season 5, Episode 2. This is the episode that cemented Sideshow Bob as one of the greatest villains in television history. It is rated 9.2 out of 10 on IMDb, making it one of the highest rated episodes of The Simpsons ever produced. Bob is paroled. He immediately begins stalking Bart. He writes threatening letters, he makes threatening phone calls. The threats are so severe that the FBI places the Simpson family in the witness relocation program. They move to a houseboat on Terror Lake under the alias Thompson. This is a real thing that happens in real life to people being stalked by dangerous criminals, and it is happening to a 10-year-old boy because of a cartoon villain's obsession. Bob follows them. He finds the houseboat. He sneaks aboard at night. He subdues the family. He prepares to kill Bart with a machete. And the only thing that saves Bart's life is a stalling tactic. Bart asks Bob, as his final request, to perform the entire score of HMS Pinafore. Bob, unable to resist performing Gilbert and Sullivan, agrees. He sings the entire opera. It takes so long that the houseboat drifts back to Springfield, where the police arrest Bob the moment he finishes performing. This episode is brilliant comedy. It is also genuinely terrifying if you think about it for more than 5 seconds. An adult man tracked a child across state lines, evaded federal protection, infiltrated a safe house, and came within moments of committing murder. He was stopped by his own ego, not by any failure of intent or capability. In Sideshow Bob Robert, Season 6, Episode 5, Bob's crimes move from personal to political. He rigs a mayoral election in Springfield. His method is voter fraud on a massive scale. He registers dead people and animals to vote for him, including the Simpsons' own cat, Snowball. Bob wins the election and becomes mayor, which he uses as a platform to eliminate Bart. When Bart and Lisa investigate and challenge him in court, Bob's ego gets the best of him again. They bait him by suggesting he is not smart enough to have rigged the election on his own, that he was just a puppet for conservative radio host Birch Barlow. Bob, unable to tolerate anyone questioning his intelligence, confesses to the entire scheme in open court. Then comes Sideshow Bob's Last Gleaming from Season 7. This is where Bob goes from personal nemesis to genuine terrorist. He escapes from prison during an air show at Springfield Air Force Base. He locates a nuclear bomb, an actual nuclear weapon, and he threatens to detonate it unless all television in Springfield is permanently shut down. Bob's motivation here is interesting. He hates television. He believes it has ruined society. This is an intellectually consistent position for someone who was personally degraded on television for years. But his method, threatening to nuke a city, is completely insane. When Krusty finds a way to keep broadcasting despite the threat, Bob steals the Wright brothers' plane and attempts a kamikaze attack to kill Krusty and himself. He is willing to die to prove his point about the evils of television. This is not a man who is simply angry at Bart Simpson anymore. This is a man who has expanded his targets to include the entire concept of mass media, using weapons of mass destruction as his tool of protest. Bob has gone from personal vendetta to genuine terrorism. In The Italian Bob from Season 17, we see a different side of Bob. The Simpsons travel to Italy to pick up a sports car for Mr. Burns. They discover that Bob has moved to a small Italian town called Salsiccia. He has been elected mayor, he has a wife, Francesca, and a son, Gino. He has, by all appearances, started a completely new life. He is reformed, he is happy, he is no longer obsessed with Bart. Bob welcomes the Simpsons and asks them to keep his criminal past a secret. They agree. But during a dinner, Lisa, who has had too much wine, accidentally reveals Bob's history to the entire town. Bob's new life is destroyed, his reputation is ruined, his community turns on him. And Bob's response is to extend his vendetta from Bart alone to the entire Simpson family. All of them are now targets. This is significant because it shows that Bob's capacity for violence is not limited to his relationship with Bart. When his life is disrupted, no matter by whom, his response is murder. Lisa did not mean to out him. It was an accident. But Bob does not care about intent. He cares about consequences to himself. And anyone who causes him problems deserves death. In Funeral for a Fiend from Season 19, Bob orchestrates one of his most elaborate schemes. He fakes his own death to frame Bart. The plan involves his entire family. His brother Cecil, voiced by David Hyde Pierce, and his father Robert Sr., voiced by John Mahoney, both appear. This is a reunion of the Frasier cast playing Bob's family, and it is used in service of a plan to frame a child for murder. Bob's family is just as cultured and just as willing to participate in criminal schemes as Bob himself. And then there is Treehouse of Horror, 26 from Season 27. This is a non-canon Halloween episode, so it does not count in the main continuity. But it is worth discussing because it shows what happens when Bob finally achieves his goal. Bob kills Bart. He does it with a spear gun. After 24 years of trying, he finally succeeds. He takes a selfie with the corpse. He updates his social media status from attempted murderer to murderer. He celebrates, and then something unexpected happens. Bob is bored. Without Bart, his life has no purpose. Being a murderer is not fulfilling. He tries to become a literature teacher at Springfield University, but it is stressful and unsatisfying. The only thing that ever made Bob happy was the hunt. The obsession with killing Bart was the closest thing Bob had to a meaningful relationship, so Bob builds a machine to bring Bart back to life. And then he kills him again, and again, and again. He resurrects Bart repeatedly so he can experience the joy of killing him over and over. This is beyond psychopathy. This is an addiction to murder. Bob does not just want Bart dead, he wants to experience making Bart dead, the act of killing, as a repeatable event. The Simpsons break into Bob's basement, resurrect Bart for good, and Homer rips Bob's head off. But the message is clear. Bob's obsession with Bart was never about justice or revenge. It was about meaning. Without Bart to hunt, Bob has nothing. So let us total up Sideshow Bob's rap sheet across the entire series. He has committed armed robbery and framed an innocent man. He attempted to murder Selma Bouvier for inheritance money. He stalked a child across state lines and attempted murder with a weapon. He rigged a mayoral election through voter fraud. He stole a nuclear weapon and threatened to destroy a city. He attempted a suicide attack on a public figure. He attempted murder of the entire Simpson family in Italy. He faked his own death as part of a criminal conspiracy involving his family. And in a non-canon episode, he actually succeeded in killing Bart and then created a machine to kill him infinitely. Sideshow Bob is voiced by Kelsey Grammer. He has appeared in 16 focused episodes across the series, with numerous additional cameos. He is arguably the most well-developed recurring villain in animated television history. And the thing that makes him truly terrifying is not his intelligence or his elaborate plans, it is his patience. Bob will wait years between attempts on Bart's life. He will build new identities, new relationships, new careers, all of which he is willing to destroy the moment an opportunity to hurt Bart presents itself. His obsession is the organizing principle of his entire existence. Compared to the characters we have already discussed, Bob is in a different category entirely. Lisa is self-righteous. Marge enables. Bart causes chaos. Homer is dangerously stupid. Ned is hypocritical. Krusty is exploitative. Moe is desperate. But Sideshow Bob is calculated evil wrapped in high culture. He is proof that intelligence and education do not make someone good. They just make a bad person more dangerous. But even Bob, with all his schemes and his body count, is not the worst character in Springfield. We have 2 more entries to go, and both of them deal in something Bob only dabbles in: casual, consequence-free evil committed with absolute indifference to human life. Fat Tony, the casual killer. Marion Anthony D'Amico, known to everyone in Springfield as Fat Tony, is the head of the Springfield Mafia. He runs organized crime in the town the way a mid-level manager runs a department, efficiently, without drama, and with a complete lack of moral conflict. Unlike Sideshow Bob, who wraps his crimes in intellectual justification, or Homer, who commits them through incompetence, Fat Tony does terrible things because they are profitable, and he sees nothing wrong with that. Murder is a business tool. Extortion is a revenue stream. Corruption is standard operating procedure. Fat Tony does not agonize over his choices. He does not rationalize. He does not feel guilt. He simply conducts business. In Bart the Murderer from Season 3, Fat Tony employs Bart, a 10-year-old, as a bartender in his criminal headquarters. Bart mixes drinks for mobsters. He is a child serving alcohol to violent criminals, and Fat Tony sees absolutely nothing wrong with this arrangement. When Principal Skinner goes missing, Fat Tony is the prime suspect. The show implies strongly that Fat Tony had Skinner buried alive under his house, which turns out to be accurate. Skinner's found alive, but the intent was murder. Fat Tony was willing to kill a school principal because the man was annoying his new child bartender. Throughout the series, Fat Tony has ordered hits on people, run protection rackets, bribed public officials, rigged businesses, and engaged in every form of organized crime imaginable. He sells illegal fireworks, he runs illegal gambling operations, he controls the garbage collection and construction industries through intimidation. Springfield's infrastructure is partially built on mob money and mob corruption, and Fat Tony is at the center of all of it. In the season 22 episode Donnie Fatso, the original Fat Tony actually dies. This is a rare, permanent death in The Simpsons. Homer's working as an FBI informant inside Fat Tony's organization, and the stress and danger of the situation contribute to Fat Tony's death. But the show immediately replaces him with his cousin, Fit Tony, who stress eats himself into becoming the new Fat Tony. The implication is clear. It does not matter which individual runs the Springfield mob. The role will always be filled. The corruption is structural, not personal. What makes Fat Tony uniquely disturbing is his normalcy. He attends town events, he socializes with Homer and the other regulars at various community functions. He has dinner with people he may later threaten or kill. He is not a shadowy figure hiding in the darkness. He is a visible, known, acknowledged criminal who operates openly because Springfield's institutions are too corrupt or incompetent to stop him. Homer has owed money to Fat Tony in multiple episodes, and Fat Tony's collection methods are always the same. Threats of violence followed by actual violence if the threats do not work. He has sent goons to the Simpson home. He has made Homer fear for his life. He has used Homer's desperation as leverage to get him involved in criminal schemes. Fat Tony does not rank higher on this list because, in a strange way, he is the most honest character we have discussed. He does not pretend to be good. He does not have a fake personality concealing his true nature. He does not justify his crimes with intellectual arguments or moral positions. He is a criminal, and he knows it. He hurts people for money, and he is comfortable with that. In the context of The Simpsons, Fat Tony serves as a reminder that Springfield is not a quirky small town. It is a deeply corrupt community where organized crime operates alongside the school system, the police department, and local government. Fat Tony is the symptom. Springfield's broken institutions are the disease. But Fat Tony, for all his violence and corruption, is still a middle manager of evil. He runs a local operation. His crimes affect Springfield. His body count, while implied to be significant, is contained to a relatively small geographic area. The final character on this list operates on an entirely different scale. His crimes do not affect a neighborhood or a town, they affect entire populations. His evil is not personal or emotional, it is corporate and systemic. He is the oldest, richest, and most powerful person in Springfield. And he is, by any reasonable measure, the worst character in the entire Simpsons universe. Before we get into this last entry, if you have made it this far, you are a real one. Subscribe if you have not already, because this final section might be the most disturbing breakdown on the entire list. Mr. Burns, the embodiment of evil. Charles Montgomery Burns, born in 1882, which makes him approximately 104 years old at any given point in the series. Owner of the Springfield Nuclear Power Plant. Resident of Burns Manor, the largest private estate in the Springfield area. Employer of Waylon Smithers, his devoted personal assistant, and the single worst human being in the history of animated television. That is not an exaggeration. When you compile every terrible thing Mr. Burns has done across 35 seasons of The Simpsons, the result is not a rap sheet. It is a war crimes dossier. Let's start at the beginning. Not Burns' first appearance, but the beginning of his evil. Because the show has made it clear that Burns was not corrupted by wealth or power. He was born this way. In the Season 5 episode Springfield, the show flashes back to Burns' childhood. He is a boy. He is at an amusement park or fairground. He is driving a bumper car, and he spots an Irish laborer standing nearby. Burns drives the bumper car into the man car. The man falls. Burns drives into him again, and again, and again. He runs over this man repeatedly until the laborer's legs are broken, and young Burns laughs the entire time. This is not a young man learning cruelty. This is a child who already possesses it in its purest form. He derives genuine pleasure from hurting people. The flashback makes Burns visibly nostalgic. He is an old man fondly remembering the time he crippled a laborer for fun as a child. He has been evil for over a century. Now let's look at how that childhood evil scaled up when Burns acquired wealth and power. The Springfield nuclear power plant is Burns' primary business. It is also one of the most dangerous facilities in the country, and Burns has made it more dangerous through decades of negligence and cost-cutting. In 2 Cars in Every Garage and 3 Eyes on Every Fish, Season 2, Episode 4, state nuclear inspectors discover 342 safety violations at the plant. The cost to fix them would be over $56 million. Burns' accountant, Smithers, calculates the exact figure at $56,088,800. Any responsible business owner would fix the violations. They are safety violations at a nuclear plant. People's lives depend on that facility meeting basic safety standards. Burns' response? He runs for governor so he can change the laws and make the violations legal. He does not want to fix the plant. He wants to change the rules so the plant no longer needs to be fixed. During the campaign, Burns' team discovers that the 3-eyed fish, Blinky, which Bart caught downstream from the plant, has become a symbol of Burns' environmental destruction. Burns tries to spin this by producing a campaign ad featuring an actor dressed as Charles Darwin, claiming Blinky is an evolutionary miracle. He then promises that the fish will make a delicious meal. The Simpsons are chosen to host Burns for a televised dinner. Marge, who has been against Burns the entire time, serves him Blinky as the main course. Burns takes one bite, tries to swallow it, and spits it across the table. The cameras capture everything. His campaign is over. But the campaign itself reveals Burns' fundamental approach to problems. He does not solve them. He changes the rules so they are no longer considered problems. He does not fix safety violations. He changes the law. He does not address pollution. He changes the narrative. This is not stupidity like Homer. This is calculated, deliberate, systemic evil committed by someone with the resources to reshape reality to suit his interests. In Marge versus the Monorail from Season 4, Episode 12, Burns is caught illegally dumping nuclear waste in a public park. He and Smithers are literally stuffing barrels of toxic waste into trees at night. One tree ends up holding so many waste drums that its branches mutate into tentacles, and a squirrel living in it develops laser vision. They are caught by an EPA agent, and Burns is taken to court. The judge fines Burns $3 million for what the court describes as unbelievable contempt of human life. Burns pays the fine immediately. He does not even flinch. $3 million is nothing to him. He then steals the statue of Lady Justice from the courtroom on his way out just because he can. The fine is not a punishment. It is a transaction. Burns pays for the right to poison Springfield's parks and walks away without a second thought. The $3 million becomes a windfall for Springfield. The town holds a meeting to decide how to spend it. Marge suggests fixing the roads. A con man named Lyle Lanley shows up and convinces the town to build a monorail. The monorail is a disaster built from shoddy materials that nearly kills everyone on board. But the entire chain of events started because Burns was dumping nuclear waste in a park. Every death that the monorail almost caused traces back to Burns' original crime. Now let's talk about the Thanksgiving episode from Season 2, Bart versus Thanksgiving. There is a brief scene inside Burns Manor where Burns sits alone at an enormous dining table. The table is covered with a feast that would feed dozens of people. Turkey, pies, side dishes, everything. Burns takes a tiny bite of turkey, declares himself full, and orders Smithers to throw the rest away. All of it. An entire banquet's worth of food wasted while people in Springfield go hungry. This scene lasts only a few seconds, but it captures Burns' relationship with wealth perfectly. He does not hoard money because he wants things. He hoards money because having more than everyone else is the point. Wasting food in front of servants while his employees struggle to afford groceries is not an oversight. It is a feature of his worldview. Other people's suffering does not register as relevant to him. In Last Exit to Springfield Season 4, Episode 17, which many fans and critics consider the single greatest episode of The Simpsons ever produced, Burns commits what might be the most casually evil act in the series. He is sitting in his office. Through the window, he can see a window cleaner on a platform outside the building. The platform malfunctions. The cleaner is dangling, clearly in danger. Burns watches for a moment, then he closes the blinds. That is it. He closes the blinds and goes back to his work. He does not call for help. He does not alert anyone. He hears the screams as the man falls to his death, and he does nothing. The window cleaner dies because Burns could not be bothered to pick up a phone. This is not murder, it is something arguably worse. It is complete indifference to human life from someone who had the power to prevent a death with minimal effort. In 2001 Greyhounds, Season 6, Episode 20, Burns does something that directly mirrors one of fiction's most famous villains. Santa's little helper, the Simpsons dog, fathers a litter of 25 greyhound puppies with a racing dog. The puppies are adorable, the family loves them, and Mr. Burns wants to kill them all and make a fur tuxedo out of their skins. This is the Cruella de Vil plotline transplanted to Springfield, and Burns plays it completely straight. He is not joking, he is not exaggerating. He genuinely wants to skin 25 puppies to make himself a fancy coat. He even sings about it, performing a musical number called See My Vest that details his history of killing animals for fashion. He already owns clothing made from various animals, including gorillas and dolphins. The puppies are just the latest addition to his wardrobe of death. Burns and Smithers kidnap the puppies. They physically take them from the Simpson home and bring them to Burns Manor. The family has to rescue them. And while the episode ends with the puppies being saved because Burns discovers he cannot bring himself to kill them after seeing them perform tricks, the fact remains that Burns' plan was to slaughter baby animals for vanity. He was stopped by a moment of weakness, not by a change of heart. Now let's discuss what is arguably the most consequential Mr. Burns storyline in the entire series. Who Shot Mr. Burns, the Season 6 finale and Season 7 premiere. This two-part episode is the most ambitious thing The Simpsons has ever attempted, and it centers on Burns committing an act so evil that literally every person in Springfield has a motive to kill him. The story begins at Springfield Elementary School. Groundskeeper Willie discovers oil under the school. This is a massive windfall. The school can finally afford new equipment, teachers, and programs. Principal Skinner is thrilled. Tito Puente is hired to teach jazz. Lisa gets her music program funded. Things are looking up for the chronically underfunded school. But Burns wants the oil. He needs it to maintain his energy monopoly over Springfield. His initial approach is to disguise himself as a student named Jimbo Jones and try to buy the drilling rights from Skinner. When that fails, because Skinner immediately recognizes a 104-year-old man pretending to be a child, Burns takes a different approach. He organizes a slant drilling operation to tap into the school's oil well from the side, stealing the oil before the school can access it. Burns' drilling operation does not just steal oil, it causes a chain reaction of destruction across Springfield. The oil jet from the drill smashes into Bart's treehouse, injuring Bart and breaking Santa's little helper's hind legs. The drilling creates a massive sinkhole that destroys Grandpa Simpson's retirement home, forcing all the elderly residents to evacuate and Grandpa to move in with the Simpson family. The toxic fumes from the drilling operation force Moe's tavern to close, driving Barney to despair and causing Moe to grab his shotgun. Springfield Elementary goes bankrupt from building and then having to dismantle their own oil derrick, resulting in groundskeeper Willie and Tito Puente being laid off. Willie vows to kill Burns and maim Smithers right there in the office before storming out. Every single one of these consequences affects a different group of people. Children are injured, the elderly are displaced, small businesses are closed, workers are fired. An entire school system collapses, and Burns does not care about any of it. These are not unintended side effects. They are the predictable and accepted costs of Burns maintaining his monopoly. But Burns is not done. When Smithers points out that Burns has crushed all his enemies, Burns responds that he has not taken out his biggest enemy, the sun. Burns reveals his plan. He is going to construct a giant mechanical disc to permanently block the sun from shining on Springfield. By shrouding the entire town in eternal darkness, everyone will be forced to use electricity from his nuclear plant around the clock. His profits will multiply, and Springfield will live in permanent night. Smithers, who has tolerated Burns' evil for decades, finally draws a line. He tells Burns this plan is insane. All plant life will die. Owls will hoot constantly. The town's sundial will become useless, but Burns does not listen. When Smithers refuses to participate, Burns fires him. At a town meeting, Mayor Quimby opens the floor for complaints about Burns. Half the audience is openly carrying weapons. People are furious. Burns has hurt everyone in town. And then Burns shows up in person. Bart, who was injured by the oil drilling, charges at Burns in rage. Someone shoots Burns. He collapses in the town square, falling onto the sundial. The mystery of who shot him becomes a national phenomenon. Fox ran an actual contest where viewers could guess the shooter. The answer, revealed in the season 7 premiere, is Maggie Simpson, the baby. Burns tried to steal her lollipop, and Maggie shot him with a gun that fell out of his holster during a confrontation. The fact that Maggie shot Burns is the ultimate cosmic joke. The most evil man in Springfield was brought down by the most innocent member of the Simpson family. But think about what led to that moment. Burns stole oil from children. He injured a 10-year-old. He displaced the elderly. He destroyed businesses. He tried to block out the sun. He terrorized an entire town. And the only consequence he faced was being shot by a baby, which he survived. Burns always survives. That is the scariest thing about him. He has been shot, beaten, humiliated, exposed, and abandoned. And he always comes back. His money insulates him from consequences. His power protects him from justice. Springfield's institutions are too corrupt or too afraid to hold him accountable. He is literally above the law. In broadcast news from a later season, Burns goes even further. He buys every media outlet in Springfield so he can control the narrative about himself. When someone threatens his reputation, his response is not to change his behavior. It is to buy the ability to suppress criticism. He does not want to be good. He wants to control whether anyone can say he is bad. In Homer versus Dignity, the prank monkey episode we discussed earlier, Burns' treatment of Homer is not just degrading, it is psychologically abusive. Burns pays Homer to humiliate himself, yes, but Burns also orchestrates situations where Homer humiliates others. He makes Homer throw food at his own coworkers. He sets up the panda incident at the zoo. Burns is using Homer as a weapon against Homer's own friends and colleagues, paying him just enough to ensure compliance while systematically destroying his relationships and self-respect. And then there is the recycling plant. In The Old Man and the Lisa from season 8, Burns goes broke. He loses everything. Lisa, of all people, helps him rebuild. She teaches him about recycling. Burns creates the Little Lisa recycling plant. And what does he do with it? He uses recycled plastic to build a massive net that sweeps the ocean clean of all living creatures and grinds them into animal slurry for profit. Lisa tells Burns that when he tries to be good, he is somehow even more evil. This is the most accurate assessment of Burns in the entire series. Burns does not just fail at goodness, he corrupts it. He takes a concept like recycling, something that is objectively good for the world, and weaponizes it into an ecological horror. He is not failing to do the right thing, he is actively perverting it. The net that sweeps the ocean represents Burns' approach to everything. He does not just take what he needs, he takes everything, every fish, every creature, every scrap of life. He processes it all into something he can sell. This is not capitalism, this is ecological sociopathy, and he does it with a smile. Let's talk about Burns' relationship with his employees because this is where his evil becomes most personal. Burns employs Homer Simpson. Homer has worked at the nuclear plant for over a decade, in Who Shot? Mr. Burns cannot remember Homer's name. This is a running gag throughout the series, but think about what it represents. Burns has an employee who has worked for him for 10 or more years, who has met with him personally multiple times, who has even been to his home, and Burns cannot remember his name. Homer sends Burns a box of chocolates with a family photo inside. Burns eats all the chocolates except the one covering Homer's face, throws the box away, and sends a thank you note to Marge, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie, not Homer. When Homer finally snaps and breaks into Burns' office, spray painting "I am Homer Simpson" on the wall, Burns catches him in the act and says, "Who the devil are you?" Homer screams his name while shaking Burns. Burns cannot understand what Homer is saying. Security drags Homer away. This is not forgetfulness. This is a man so indifferent to the humanity of his workers that they do not exist as individuals to him. They are labor. They are interchangeable units of production. They do not have names or families or lives that matter. Homer is not a person to Burns. He is a number on a payroll, and not an important one. Burns has referred to Homer and other employees with dehumanizing language throughout the series. He uses terms that reduce people to their function or their appearance. He has called employees by the wrong name, misidentified their roles, and treated them as disposable. The nuclear plant's safety record, which includes 342 violations in a single inspection, reflects Burns's attitude toward his workforce. They do not matter enough to protect. Now let's compare Burns to every other character on this list, because that comparison reveals just how far ahead he is in the ranking. Lisa Simpson is self-righteous. She tears up a $12 million check and causes her father to have heart attacks. That is real harm. But Lisa's damage is contained to her immediate family and comes from a place of genuine moral conviction, however misguided. Marge Simpson enables. She forgives Homer for everything, including framing her for DUI. She stays in a marriage that any therapist would tell her to leave. But Marge's enabling primarily hurts herself. And her rare criminal acts, the shoplifting incident, the power trips as a police officer, are the eruptions of a pressure cooker, not the actions of someone who enjoys causing harm. Bart Simpson is a chaos agent. He has worked for the mob, committed fraud, caused enormous property damage, and earned a juvenile detention sentence. But Bart is 10 years old. His crimes are the crimes of a neglected kid acting out. He does not plan to hurt people, he wants attention. Homer Simpson is a walking disaster. He has caused an environmental catastrophe, abandoned his dying father, gotten someone killed through reckless behavior, and committed every petty crime on the books. But Homer is stupid. His crimes come from a combination of low intelligence, high impulsivity, and zero ability to learn from consequences. There is no calculation involved. Homer does not think about what he is doing. He just does it. Ned Flanders is a hypocrite. His entire nice guy persona is a psychological construct built by childhood therapy, and underneath it is genuine rage and judgment. But Ned has never actually hurt anyone. His worst crime is feeling superior while pretending to be humble. Krusty the Clown is an exploiter. He abused Sideshow Bob until Bob became a criminal. He sells dangerous merchandise to children. He evaded taxes. He disappointed his father until the man died. But Krusty's damage, while extensive, is the damage of neglect and selfishness, not the damage of intent. Moe Sislak is desperate. He commits fraud, steals recipes, preys on vulnerable people, and enables addiction for profit. But Moe is a broken man whose crimes are motivated by loneliness and self-loathing. He is pathetic enough that his evil reads as tragedy. Sideshow Bob is a genuine threat. He has committed armed robbery, attempted murder multiple times, rigged an election, stolen a nuclear weapon, and in non-canon continuity actually killed his target. But Bob's evil is personal and obsessive. He targets specific people for specific reasons. His scope is limited to his grudge. Fat Tony is a professional criminal. He kills for money. He corrupts institutions. He runs organized crime. But Fat Tony's evil is transactional. It is business. There is a logic to it, however twisted. And his operations are confined to Springfield's criminal underworld. Mr. Burns operates on a completely different level. Burns' evil is not personal. He does not hate specific people. He is indifferent to all people. His contempt is universal. Every single person on the planet who is not C. Montgomery Burns is irrelevant to him. They exist only as resources to be exploited, obstacles to be removed, or furniture to be ignored. Burns' evil is not emotional. He does not act out of rage, like Ned in Hurricane Nettie. He does not act out of desperation, like Moe with his insurance fraud. He does not act out of stupidity, like Homer with the pig silo. Burns makes cold, calculated decisions based entirely on profit and self-interest. His evil is rational, which makes it more frightening. Burns' evil is not contained. Homer's disasters are big, but they are one-offs. Burns' destruction is systemic and ongoing. The nuclear plant poisons Springfield's water supply every day. The safety violations endanger workers every shift. The illegal waste dumping contaminates the environment on an ongoing basis. Burns does not cause one catastrophe and then stop. He causes slow, continuous, accumulating damage that compounds over decades. Burns' evil is protected by wealth. Homer goes to jail, Bart goes to juvie. Moe's bar burns down. Sideshow Bob gets caught every time. But Burns walks into court, pays a fine that amounts to pocket change, steals a statue on the way out, and goes home to his mansion. His money is a force field. It makes him untouchable. The $3 million fine for poisoning a park? That is Burns' couch cushion money. He paid it the way you or I would pay for a parking meter, and Burns' evil is enabled by institutions. The police do not investigate him seriously, the courts do not punish him meaningfully, the government does not regulate his plant effectively, the media does not hold him accountable. And when it tries, he buys the media. Springfield's entire power structure is bent around Burns like gravity around a black hole. Everything orbits him because he has the mass to bend reality. Let's go through his complete rap sheet one more time to appreciate the full scope. As a child, Burns deliberately crippled an Irish laborer by running him over with a bumper car repeatedly. This was not an accident, it was entertainment. As an adult, Burns acquired the Springfield nuclear power plant. Under his ownership, the plant has accumulated hundreds of safety violations. Workers have been endangered. The surrounding environment has been poisoned. Three-eyed fish live in the water downstream. The plant is a ticking time bomb that continues to operate only because Burns has enough money and political influence to keep it running. Burns has illegally dumped nuclear waste in public parks, poisoning the ground and mutating wildlife. He paid a fine described by the court as reflecting unbelievable contempt of human life, and it did not slow him down for a single day. Burns has stolen oil from an elementary school, destroying the school's finances and causing collateral damage, including injuring a child, displacing the elderly, closing a small business, and putting workers out of their jobs. Burns has attempted to block out the sun to create permanent darkness over Springfield, forcing the entire population to depend on his power plant for light and heat. This plan would have killed all plant life in the area and fundamentally altered the ecosystem. Burns has kidnapped puppies to make a fur tuxedo. He has a wardrobe of clothing made from endangered and exotic animals. Burns has watched a window cleaner fall to his death and done nothing. He closed the blinds. Burns has wasted enough food to feed families while his employees struggle to make ends meet. He throws away banquets because he is full after one bite. Burns has employed Homer as a personal humiliation puppet, orchestrating his degradation and the degradation of Homer's co-workers for entertainment. Burns has created an ecological horror by building a recycling plant that sweeps the ocean of all life and grinds it into slurry. Burns has run for political office specifically to change laws that would hold him accountable for endangering lives. Burns has bought media outlets to suppress criticism of himself. Burns cannot remember the name of an employee who has worked for him for over a decade, and after being shot by a baby, which is the only real consequence he has ever faced, Burns recovered and went right back to being Burns. This is why Mr. Burns is the worst character in The Simpsons. He is not the craziest, he is not the most violent, he's not the most unhinged, he is the most evil. And the distinction matters. Crazy implies a loss of control. Burns has total control. Violent implies emotion. Burns feels nothing. Unhinged implies unpredictability. Burns is the most predictable character on the show. He will always choose profit over people. He will always choose power over decency. He will always choose himself over everyone else. Every time, without exception, forever. Burns is what happens when evil is patient, wealthy, and protected by institutions. He does not need to be smart, although he is. He does not need to be strong, although he commands strength through Smithers and hired goons. He just needs to have enough money to buy his way out of every consequence and enough power to prevent consequences from arising in the first place. In a show full of characters who cause harm through stupidity, impulse, obsession, or dysfunction, Mr. Burns stands alone as someone who causes harm through choice. Cold, calculated, indifferent choice. He knows what he is doing. He knows it hurts people. He does not care. Charles Montgomery Burns, 104 years old. Owner of a nuclear plant with 342 safety violations. Consumer of puppy fur, blocker of suns, employer of prank monkeys, ignorer of falling window cleaners. The worst character in The Simpsons, and it is not even close. So there it is, the complete ranking. Every major character in Springfield examined through the lens of the absolute worst thing they have ever done. Let's run through the final order one more time. At the bottom, we have Lisa Simpson, self-righteous to a fault, capable of causing real emotional and financial harm to her family, but never violent and always motivated by genuine moral conviction. Her worst act is tearing up a $12 million check because accepting it would compromise her principles, nearly killing her father with heart attacks in the process. Next is Marge Simpson, the enabler, the woman who has forgiven Homer for everything from strangling their son to framing her for drunk driving. Her worst act is not any single crime, but the cumulative pattern of accepting the unacceptable for 35 years. Then Bart Simpson, the chaos agent, mob bartender, juvenile delinquent, wedding scam artist. His worst act is probably the wedding gift fraud that left people suffocating in a tent, but his entire career of pranks and vandalism represents a staggering accumulation of damage for a 10-year-old. Then Homer Simpson, the walking disaster. His worst single act is abandoning his dying father on the operating table, not once but twice, after causing the medical emergency in the first place. But his overall impact, including causing an environmental dome catastrophe, getting Maud Flanders killed, and almost causing a nuclear meltdown, makes him arguably the most destructive character on the show through sheer volume of incidents. Then Ned Flanders, the manufactured saint. His worst act is the Hurricane Nettie breakdown that revealed his niceness is a psychological construct, not a choice, and that underneath it lies a person who judges and resents everyone around him. Then Krusty the Clown, the exploiter who created a supervillain through decades of abuse, sold dangerous products to children, and abandoned his own heritage for applause. His worst act is his sustained mistreatment of Sideshow Bob, which directly led to Bob's criminal career. Then Moe Szyslak, the desperate loner who committed insurance fraud, got Homer arrested for grand theft auto, steals from his friends, preys on vulnerable people, and enables addiction for profit. His worst act is the insurance fraud scheme that sent his best friend to jail, while Moe considered leaving him there to go on vacation. Then Sideshow Bob, the cultured psychopath who has committed armed robbery, attempted murder more times than anyone can count, rigged an election, stolen a nuclear bomb, and in one timeline actually achieved his goal of killing a child only to realize his life was meaningless without someone to murder. His worst act is threatening to nuke Springfield over his hatred of television, escalating his personal vendetta into genuine terrorism. Then Fat Tony, the professional criminal who kills for money, corrupts Springfield's institutions, and employed a child as a bartender. His worst act is the systemic corruption of an entire town's infrastructure through organized crime that operates openly because nobody can stop it. And at the top, Mr. Burns, the embodiment of corporate evil. His worst act is attempting to block out the sun to monopolize Springfield's energy supply, but his overall impact, including the nuclear plant safety violations that endanger thousands, the illegal waste dumping, the oil theft from children, the puppy kidnapping, the indifference to death, and the systematic exploitation of every person and institution in Springfield, makes him the undisputed worst character in the show. The Simpsons has been on the air since 1989. It has been renewed through season 40. These characters are going to keep doing terrible things for years to come. Homer will keep causing disasters. Bart will keep causing chaos. Burns will keep being Burns. And every week, Marge will say, "This is the worst thing you have ever done." And it will mean nothing, because next week there will be something worse. That is the genius of The Simpsons. It is not a show about bad people. It is a show about flawed people in a flawed town that keeps forgiving them, because what else can you do? Springfield's population resets every Monday. The damage disappears, the relationships heal, the crimes are forgotten, and the cycle starts again. 35 years of the worst people you cannot help but love. 35 years of cartoon characters committing real crimes with fake consequences. 35 years of a family that should have been broken apart 1,000 times over, but somehow keeps sitting down at that same dinner table every night. That is The Simpsons. That is Springfield. And if you have made it this far, you are either deeply invested in animated television, or you are fast asleep, which was kind of the point. Good night to Springfield. See you at Moe's. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more long-form breakdowns. I will see you in the next one. Actually, before we fully close the book on Springfield, there are a few more things worth talking about. Because this list focused on the major characters, but there are moments scattered across the series that deserve attention. Moments that add context to what we have already discussed and paint an even darker picture of the town these people live in. Let's talk about what Springfield itself has done to the Simpson family, because as bad as these characters are individually, the town as a collective is arguably worse. In the season 23 episode, At Long Last Leave, which was the 500th episode of the series, the entire town of Springfield votes unanimously to kick the Simpson family out. Not just Homer, not just Bart. the entire family, including Marge, Lisa, and baby Maggie. The town holds a secret meeting specifically timed during a fake disaster drill, so the Simpsons will not find out. When the Simpsons accidentally discover the meeting, Mayor Quimby lays out the case against them. He lists Homer's recklessness, Bart's pranks at school, at church, and throughout town, Lisa's environmental campaigns, which while cheaper than the other damages, were apparently annoying enough to count, Maggie shooting Mr. Burns, and Marge's attempts to present the family in a positive light, which Quimby describes as its own form of damage. The mayor actually declares Marge to be the worst Simpson of all, which is a stunning judgment from a man who has overlooked Homer's crimes for decades. Even Ned Flanders, who tries to defend the Simpsons, gets ejected from the meeting. The vote is unanimous. The Simpsons are formally exiled from Springfield in a grand ceremony, forced to cram their possessions into their car and drive into the unknown. Think about what this means. A town that tolerates Mr. Burns poisoning their water, Fat Tony running organized crime, Sideshow Bob attempting murder repeatedly, and Chief Wiggum's complete incompetence as a law enforcement officer. That town decided the Simpson family was the problem that needed to be removed, not the nuclear waste, not the corruption, not the actual criminals. A blue-collar family with a dumb dad and a troublemaker kid. The family ends up at an off-the-grid commune called the Outlands, where they actually thrive. Homer, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie all take to the anarchic lifestyle. They are happier outside Springfield than they ever were inside it. But Marge is homesick. She misses the town that just banished her. Homer sneaks her back into Springfield because he cannot stand seeing her sad. And then the rest of Springfield decides to move to the Outlands too, because once they saw the Simpsons enjoying their exile, they wanted in. The town that kicked the family out follows them because Springfield cannot function without the Simpsons to blame for everything. This episode, which aired in 2012, is a meta-commentary on the show itself. Springfield needs the Simpsons, not because the Simpsons make the town better, but because the town needs someone to scapegoat. Without Homer to blame for disasters, without Bart to blame for vandalism, without the Simpson family absorbing the town's collective frustration, Springfield would have to face the reality that it is a deeply broken community with systemic problems that have nothing to do with one family on Evergreen Terrace. This connects directly to something we discussed in the Meg section of our reference material. Just as Meg Griffin realizes she serves as the family punching bag to keep the Griffins from turning on each other, the Simpsons serve the same function for Springfield. They absorb the town's failures. They take the blame. They get exiled, mocked, arrested, and humiliated. And then they come back because the show needs them to come back, and Springfield needs them to come back, and the cycle continues. Let's also revisit Homer's employment situation because it adds another layer to everything we discussed. Homer works at the Springfield nuclear power plant. He is the safety inspector for Sector 7G. His job is to monitor the reactor and prevent meltdowns. He is personally responsible for the safety of nuclear material that could, if mishandled, destroy the town. Homer got this job through pure luck. He is not qualified. He did not earn it through education or merit. He does not understand the technology he is supposed to be monitoring. He has fallen asleep on the job countless times. He has eaten donuts at his control panel while warning lights flashed. He once used a drinking bird toy to press the key that prevents meltdowns because he did not want to do it himself. And Mr. Burns keeps him employed. Why? Because Homer is cheap. Because Homer does not complain about safety conditions. Because Homer is too stupid to realize he is being exploited. Burns does not want competent employees at the nuclear plant. Competent employees would notice the 342 safety violations. Competent employees would report the illegal waste dumping. Competent employees would demand proper safety equipment and procedures. Homer notices nothing, reports nothing, and demands nothing except donuts. This means Burns and Homer exist in a symbiotic relationship of mutual destruction. Burns exploits Homer's stupidity to maintain a dangerous facility. Homer benefits from Burns's low standards to maintain employment he does not deserve. The losers in this arrangement are everyone else in Springfield who lives downstream from the plant, drinks the water, breathes the air, and depends on a safety inspector who cannot tell the difference between a control panel and a vending machine. When you look at Springfield from this angle, the entire ranking we just completed makes more sense. These are not isolated characters doing isolated bad things. They are interconnected parts of a system that produces and enables evil. Burns creates the conditions for Homer's negligence. Homer's negligence creates the conditions for Bart's neglect. Bart's neglect creates the conditions for his criminal behavior. Marge enables all of it by refusing to break the cycle. Lisa sees the problems clearly, but is too self-righteous to fix them in a way that actually works. And the town, Springfield itself, tolerates all of it because the alternative would require looking in the mirror. The Simpsons is not just a show about a family, it is a show about a system. A system where the rich are untouchable, the poor are exploitable, the institutions are broken, and everyone is too comfortable or too defeated to demand change. Mr. Burns sits at the top of that system because he designed it. Homer sits in the middle because the system needs someone like him to function. And the rest of Springfield fills in the gaps, each person contributing their own small piece of dysfunction to the larger picture. That is why this show has lasted 35 years and counting. It is not because the jokes are funny, although they are. It is not because the characters are lovable, although they are. It is because The Simpsons tells the truth about how communities work. Power protects itself. Systems resist change. People repeat their mistakes. And every Monday, the slate gets wiped clean so it can all happen again. 750 episodes, 40-plus seasons ordered. An entire town of characters who have collectively committed enough crimes to keep a courthouse busy for centuries. And at the end of every episode, the family sits on the couch, the theme music plays, and Springfield pretends that everything is fine. Everything is not fine. It never was. But that is what makes it The Simpsons. And that, finally, is the end of this breakdown. Every character, every crime, every worst moment. Ranked from Lisa's self-righteousness to Burns' institutional evil, with every shade of dysfunction in between. If you made it through this entire video awake, I am genuinely impressed. If you fell asleep somewhere around Mo Sislak, that is perfectly fine too. That is what this was for. Sweet dreams, Springfield. Try not to let Mr. Burns block out your sun. Subscribe if you enjoyed this. Like the video if you want more long-form breakdowns like this one. And I will see you in the next video. Good night. One last thing before you drift off, because there is a question that has been hanging over this entire video that we have not addressed directly. Why do we love these characters? Seriously. Think about what we just spent 2 hours discussing. Homer is a negligent father who strangled his son, abandoned his dying father, and got someone killed through selfishness. Bart is a juvenile criminal who worked for the mob and scammed people into suffocation. Mr. Burns tried to block out the actual son. Sideshow Bob spent 24 years planning the murder of a child and once stole a nuclear weapon. Fat Tony runs organized crime and has likely killed people. Moe committed arson and fraud and left his best friend in jail. These are not people you should like. If you met any of them in real life, you would cross the street. You would lock your doors, you would call the police. And yet, for 3.5 decades, audiences have tuned in every week to watch them. Not because we approve of what they do, because we recognize something in them. Homer's selfishness is our selfishness. Every time we choose comfort over responsibility, every time we eat the donut instead of going to the gym, every time we take the easy way out, we are Homer. We might not dump pig waste into a lake, but we have all cut corners when nobody was watching. Marge's enabling is our enabling. We have all tolerated bad behavior from people we love because confronting it felt harder than accepting it. We have all told ourselves, this is the last time, and then let there be another time. Marge stays with Homer for the same reason people stay in bad situations everywhere. Because leaving is scarier than suffering. Bart's chaos is our chaos, not literally. But the desire to be noticed, to matter, to make an impact on a world that seems indifferent to our existence, that is universal. Bart does not vandalize school because he enjoys destruction. He does it because a broken window gets more attention than a quiet kid sitting in the back of class. Lisa's self-righteousness is our self-righteousness. We have all been right about something and handled it terribly. We have all sacrificed a relationship to win an argument. We have all chosen being correct over being kind, and we have all felt the hollow satisfaction that comes from knowing you were right while everyone around you is angry. And Burns? Burns is the system we all live in. He is not one person. He is every institution that prioritizes profit over people, every corporation that cuts safety corners to save money, every billionaire who could solve problems but chooses not to because the problems are profitable. Burns is not a person. He is a mirror held up to the structures of power that shape our lives. The Simpsons works because it does not judge these characters. It does not punish them in lasting ways. It lets them be terrible and then lets them come home and sit on the couch and be a family. Because that is what real life is. People do terrible things and then they eat dinner and watch television and go to bed. And tomorrow they wake up and they might do something terrible again or they might not. And either way, the world keeps turning. Springfield is not a fictional town. It is every town. Homer is not a fictional father. He is every father who tried his best and failed spectacularly. Marge is not a fictional wife. She is every partner who loves someone they should have left a long time ago. And Burns is not a fictional villain. He is every person who had the power to help and chose not to. The show premiered on December 17th, 1989. It has been running for over 35 years. The highest rated episode on IMDb is Homer's Enemy from Season 8, which scored a 9.3 out of 10 and introduced Frank Grimes, a normal person who was driven to self-destruction by Homer's undeserved success. The lowest rated episode is Lisa Goes Gaga from Season 23, hovering around 3.9 to 4.5 out of 10. The most watched single episode was Bart Gets an F from Season 2, which drew approximately 33.6 million viewers. The show has produced over 36 Treehouse of Horror specials. Voice actress Marsha Wallace died in 2013, and her character Edna Krabappel was tastefully retired. Phil Hartman died in 1998, and his characters Troy McClure and Lionel Hutz were permanently retired rather than recast. The show has been produced during COVID. It survived the transition to Disney+. It switched to HD in Season 20. It has been parodied, referenced, and studied by universities. And through all of that, these characters have remained fundamentally the same. Homer is still dumb, Bart is still trouble, Lisa is still right about everything and annoying about it. Marge still holds the family together through sheer force of will. Burns still runs the plant. Bob still wants Bart dead. Moe still tends bar and contemplates the void. Krusty still entertains kids while destroying everyone in his orbit. Fat Tony still runs his operation, and Ned Flanders still lives next door, smiling through gritted teeth, his childhood therapy barely holding. They never change. That is the joke. That is also the tragedy. And that is why The Simpsons is the longest-running American animated program in television history. 22,000 words about the worst things cartoon characters have done. If you are still awake, you are a champion. If you fell asleep, the algorithm thanks you for your watch time. This has been 2 hours of Simpsons lore to fall asleep to. The worst thing every character has done, from Lisa's torn check to Burns' blocked sun and everything in between. Good night. Do not let the three-eyed fish bite. And one more thought, because I cannot let this go without saying it. The Simpsons predicted this, not this specific video, but this kind of content. In Season 7, there is a meta-joke where Troy McClure hosts a special called The Simpsons 138th Episode Spectacular, which is essentially a clip show with behind-the-scenes commentary. The show has always been aware of its own absurdity. It knows that people analyze it. It knows that fans catalog every crime, every continuity error, every cultural reference. In the episode Behind the Laughter from Season 12, the show drops all pretense and treats The Simpsons as real people whose lives have been documented by a reality show. The family discusses their fame, their dysfunction, and the toll that decades of public exposure has taken on them. It is simultaneously the funniest and most honest episode about what it means to be a character on a show that never ends. Because that is the final cruelty of The Simpsons. These characters cannot escape. Homer cannot learn from his mistakes because next week's episode needs him to make the same mistakes again. Bart cannot grow up because the show needs him to be 10 forever. Lisa cannot change Springfield because the town needs to stay broken for the comedy to work. And Burns cannot be stopped because the show needs a villain. They are trapped in a loop. An entertaining, hilarious, occasionally brilliant loop. But a loop nonetheless. The worst things every character has done are not just crimes. They are inevitabilities. Written into the DNA of a show that will never let its characters rest. Homer will strangle Bart again. Bart will prank Moe again. Burns will exploit Springfield again. And Marge will say, "This is the worst thing you have ever done" again. She will always say it. it will never mean anything. And that is the joke. That is the whole joke. That has been the joke since December 17th, 1989. The Simpsons, 35 years and counting. 750 episodes and climbing. The worst people you will ever love. Now go to sleep.